The dust settled around her worn boots as Delilah Emerson stood at the edge of the canyon, her fingers trembling around the crumpled telegram that had arrived 3 days too late to change anything. Her husband was dead. The ranch was forfeit to creditors. And at 24 years old, she had nothing left but the clothes on her back and a heart so shattered she wondered if it would ever beat properly again. The year was 1884, and Abiquiu, New Mexico, stretched behind her like a ghost town of memories she could no longer bear to face. She had walked to this spot with every intention of letting go, of surrendering to the vast emptiness that matched the hollow feeling in her chest. The wind whipped her dark hair across her face as she stood there, toes at the very edge where red earth met endless sky. What was left for her now? The man she had loved since she was 18 had been killed in a senseless argument over water rights, shot down in the street like an animal. The bank had wasted no time claiming the land his family had worked for generations. She had no children to anchor her to this world, no family who would take her in, no prospects that did not involve becoming something she refused to consider. "I would not do that if I were you." The voice came from behind her, deep and steady as creek water over stone. Delilah spun around so fast she nearly lost her footing, her arms windmilling as loose rocks skittered over the edge and disappeared into the canyon below. Strong hands caught her waist and pulled her back from the precipice with such force that they both stumbled backward several feet. She found herself pressed against a solid chest, breathing hard, her heart hammering against her ribs for reasons that had nothing to do with her dark thoughts of moments before. "Easy there," the man said, releasing her slowly as though worried she might bolt back toward the edge. "I've got you." Delilah stepped away and turned to face her unexpected savior. He was tall, with shoulders broad enough to fill out his dusty work shirt in a way that spoke of genuine labor rather than idle hours. His hair was the color of sun-bleached wheat, visible beneath a hat that had seen better days, and his eyes were an unusual shade of blue-green that reminded her of shallow water over turquoise stones. A day's worth of stubble shadowed his jaw, and there was something in his expression that looked almost as tired as she felt. "Who are you?" she demanded, trying to summon anger to cover her embarrassment. "What are you doing following me?" "Was not following you," he replied, and she noticed he spoke with careful precision as though each word mattered. "I was checking fence lines on the northern property when I saw you walking this way. Seemed like you had a particular destination in mind, and I thought I should make sure you got there safely." He paused, those unusual eyes studying her face with an intensity that made her want to look away. "Appears my instincts were correct. Your property." Delilah wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the afternoon sun. "This is Peterson land. Was Peterson land," she corrected bitterly. "Was," the man agreed. "Bank sold it to me 2 weeks ago. I'm Cole Turner. Just moved down from Colorado looking for a fresh start and some decent grazing land." He tilted his head slightly. "You must be Mrs. Peterson." "Emerson," she said automatically. "Delilah Emerson. I took back my maiden name after." She could not finish the sentence. Even now, weeks after receiving the news, saying the words made it too real. Cole Turner nodded slowly, and she saw understanding rather than pity in his expression, which was somehow worse. "The man at the land office mentioned what happened, said it was a tragedy. I am sorry for your loss." "Are you?" The words came out sharper than she intended. "Sorry enough that you bought my home right out from under me. Sorry enough that you are standing on what should have been my land, watching me fall apart like it is some kind of entertainment." Something flickered across his face and his jaw tightened. "I bought land that was legally for sale, had no way of knowing the circumstances, and even if I had, that does not change the fact that you did not own it anymore. The bank did. His voice was still level, but she heard steel underneath. As for entertainment, lady, watching someone contemplate stepping off a cliff rates pretty low on my list of enjoyable activities. Delilah felt her cheeks burn. She wanted to deny it, to claim she had just been looking at the view, but they both knew that would be a lie. Instead, she lifted her chin and met his gaze directly. What I do or do not do is none of your concern, Mr. Turner. Maybe not, he agreed. But I made it my concern when I pulled you back from that edge, so I figure I have earned at least a few minutes of your time. He gestured away from the canyon, toward where she could see a horse grazing peacefully near a stand of juniper trees. Walk with me. We can talk or we can just walk. Either way, you will be doing it on solid ground instead of contemplating that drop. She should have told him no. Should have turned and walked back to town alone, back to the tiny room above the general store where she had been sleeping on the charity of people who had known her husband's family. But something in Cole Turner's voice made her feet move before her brain could object. Maybe it was the lack of pity, or maybe it was simply that she was tired of being alone with her thoughts. Whatever the reason, she found herself walking alongside him, their boots crunching on the dry earth as they moved parallel to the canyon's edge. They walked in silence for several minutes before Cole spoke again. "What will you do now?" "I have no idea," Delilah admitted, surprised at her own honesty. "I have been trying to figure that out for weeks. There are not many options for a widow with no money and no family. I could try to find work as a seamstress or a laundress, but there are already 3 women in town doing that work and barely scraping by. I could try to find a position as a housekeeper somewhere, but most families around here do their own keeping." She laughed, a hollow sound. "I have also received 2 proposals of marriage from men I barely know, both of them at least twice my age and looking for someone to cook and clean and warm their beds. So you see, Mr. Turner, my prospects are limited and uniformly unappealing." "Call me Cole," he said. "And those are not your only options." "Oh," she raised an eyebrow. "What else would you suggest? Should I become a dancing hall girl, take up robbery? Those seem like the only other careers available to desperate women in the territory." He stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression serious. "You could work for me." Delilah felt her stomach drop. So this was what he wanted. She should have known. "I am not that kind of woman, Mr. Turner, no matter how desperate my circumstances might be." "If you think, whoa, hold on." Cole held up both hands, genuine shock crossing his face. "That is not what I meant at all. Jesus, woman, give me a little credit." He ran a hand through his hair, dislodging his hat which he caught and resettled with practiced ease. "I meant legitimate work. I need help getting the ranch running properly. The house is in decent shape, but it needs a woman's touch if I am going to make it livable. More than that, I need someone who knows this land and these people. I am an outsider here, and folks are not exactly welcoming. You know the territory, know the town, know who to trust and who to avoid. That kind of knowledge is worth something." She studied him carefully, looking for any sign of duplicity, but his face remained open and honest. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Honest work for honest pay," Cole said simply. "Help me set up the house, help me navigate the social landscape of Abiquiu, maybe help with the books once I get enough stock to need proper accounting. In exchange, you get room and board in the ranch house and a salary. Nothing fancy, but enough to give you some independence and time to figure out what you want to do next." He paused. "Or if you find you like the work, it could be more permanent. Either way, it is your choice." "Why would you do this?" Delilah asked suspiciously. "You do not know me." "For all you know, I could rob you blind and disappear in the night." Cole smiled, and it transformed his entire face, making him look younger and less careworn. "Could you?" Well, no, she admitted. But that is not the point. The point is you have no reason to trust me or to offer me anything. I have one reason, he said quietly. I know what it is like to feel like your story is over, to stand at the edge of something dark and think that maybe falling would be easier than fighting. I have been there, Mrs. Emerson. Someone gave me a reason to step back from that edge once upon a time, and I figure I owe it to the universe to pay that forward when I can. There was something in his voice that told her he was speaking from experience, not just offering empty platitudes. Delilah looked back toward the canyon, then at the land stretching out around them, red earth and scrub brush and endless sky. She thought about the tiny room above the general store, about the pitying looks and whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room. She thought about those 2 marriage proposals and the desperation that would drive her to accept one of them if things got much worse. Room and board plus $10 a month, she said finally. Cole's eyebrows rose. You drive a hard bargain. You said you needed someone who knows this territory. That knowledge is valuable, and I will not sell myself short just because I am in a difficult position. She lifted her chin. Take it or leave it. He extended his hand. I will take it on one condition. This is a trial period for both of us. If after a month you decide this is not what you want, you leave with a full month's pay and my best wishes. If after a month I find this arrangement is not working, same deal. Fair. Delilah hesitated only a moment before taking his hand. His grip was firm and warm, his palm calloused from hard work. Fair, she agreed. Good. Cole released her hand and started walking back toward his horse. Let's get you settled in then. Do you have belongings in town? Not much, she said, falling into step beside him. A trunk with some clothes and a few personal items. Everything else was sold to settle debts. We will pick them up on the way back, Cole said. He reached his horse, a sturdy buckskin gelding with intelligent eyes, and swung himself into the saddle with easy grace. Then he extended his hand down to her. You ride. Of course I ride, Delilah said, slightly offended by the question. She had grown up in this territory after all. But it had been weeks since she had been on a horse, and she found herself grateful for his assistance as he pulled her up behind him. She settled onto the horse's back, very aware of how close she was pressed against Cole Turner's back, her arms wrapped around his waist for balance. Hold tight, he said, and she felt the words rumble through his chest. Then he urged the horse forward, and they began the ride back toward town. Abiquiu was small even by territorial standards. A collection of adobe buildings clustered around a dusty main street, with the Chamar River providing a lifeline through otherwise harsh country. It had been founded decades earlier, a mixture of Spanish colonial influence and newer American settlement, and it bore the marks of both cultures in its architecture and population. Delilah had lived here since marrying Thomas Peterson 6 years ago, but she had never felt like she truly belonged. The old Spanish families viewed her as an outsider, while the newer Anglo settlers had never quite accepted her either, perhaps because her marriage had been born more of necessity than passion. Cole guided his horse to the general store, where Delilah rented her room from Samuel Martinez, a man in his 50s who had known her husband's family for years. Samuel was outside sweeping the front steps when they arrived, and his eyebrows rose nearly to his hairline when he saw Delilah dismount from behind a stranger. Mrs. Peterson, he said carefully, his accent carrying the melodic quality of someone who had grown up speaking Spanish before English. I was beginning to worry. You left early this morning without saying where you were going. I went for a walk, Delilah said, which was not quite a lie. Mr. Martinez, this is Cole Turner. He is the new owner of the Peterson Ranch. I will be working for him, so I need to collect my things. Samuel's expression shifted through several emotions in rapid succession: surprise, concern, disapproval, and finally resignation. "Working for him," he repeated slowly. "Doing what kind of work, if I may ask?" "The respectable kind," Cole interjected before Delilah could respond. His voice was pleasant, but carried an undercurrent of steel. "Mrs. Emerson will be helping me get the ranch house in order and providing valuable local knowledge as I establish myself in the community. I assure you, Mr. Martinez, everything will be completely above board and proper." Samuel looked between them, clearly torn between disapproval and relief at having his unexpected boarder leaving. Finally, he sighed. "Your trunk is in your room, Mrs. Peterson. I will help you bring it down." The trunk was not heavy, containing as it did only 3 dresses, some undergarments, a few books, and a small wooden box of personal mementos. Between the 3 of them, they had it loaded onto Cole's horse within minutes. Samuel refused payment for the room, waving away Delilah's protests with the air of a man who was simply glad to have a problem solved. As they prepared to leave, Samuel caught Delilah's arm. "Be careful," he said quietly in Spanish, knowing Cole likely would not understand. "You do not know this man." "I did not know Thomas either when I married him," Delilah replied in the same language. "At least this time I am going in with my eyes open." Samuel looked like he wanted to argue but finally just nodded and stepped back. Cole secured the trunk, helped Delilah back onto the horse, and they rode out of town with the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the dusty street. The ranch was about 5 miles north of town, accessible by a road that was little more than a pair of wagon ruts through the scrubland. As they approached, Delilah felt a pang in her chest. She had lived here for 6 years, had tried to make it home, had failed. The house was adobe, like most buildings in the territory, with a covered porch that faced east to catch the morning sun. It was not large, just 4 rooms, but it was solidly built and had a certain charm to it with its rounded corners and deep-set windows. The outbuildings were in various states of repair. The barn was sound, but the chicken coop needed work, and what had once been a small stable for extra horses was missing half its roof. The corrals were intact, though, and Delilah could see that Cole had already started making improvements, fresh lumber stacked near the barn and new fence posts waiting to be set. Cole dismounted and helped her down, then began unloading her trunk. "I have been sleeping in the barn," he said, nodding toward the structure. "Figured it would not be proper to move into the house until I had everything sorted, but now that you are here, that changes things. You will take the main bedroom. I will set up in the smaller room off the kitchen. There is a stove that works, and the well water is clean. I have been buying supplies in town, so there should be enough to make a decent supper if you are hungry." Delilah looked at the house, and for the first time in weeks, she felt something other than despair. It was not hope, not yet, but it was something. Possibility, maybe. A chance to write a different ending to her story than the one she had been contemplating at the canyon's edge. "Let me see what I have to work with," she said, and walked toward the house she had once called home. The interior was dusty but not dirty, which suggested Cole had at least made some effort at basic maintenance. The main room served as both sitting area and dining space, with a fireplace taking up most of one wall. The kitchen was small but functional, with the promised stove and a dry sink that would need water hauled from the well. The main bedroom was exactly as she remembered it, though stripped of the personal items that had once made it hers and Thomas's. Cole had been true to his word about staying in the barn. There was no evidence anyone had been sleeping here. The smaller room off the kitchen had probably been intended as a pantry or storage space, but it was large enough for a bed and a small chest of drawers. Delilah stood in the doorway looking at it, trying to imagine Cole Turner sleeping in this tiny space when there was a perfectly good bedroom available. "I know it is small," Cole said from behind her, making her jump slightly. She had not heard him come in. "But I have slept in worse places. Besides, this way there is a whole room between us. Keeps things proper." "You are very concerned with propriety for a man who just hired a widow to live in his house," Delilah observed. "Your reputation is the only thing you have left," Cole said seriously. "I will not be responsible for damaging it further. If anyone asks, and they will, we have a completely professional arrangement. You are my employee, nothing more." "And what if people talk anyway?" Delilah asked. "This is a small town, Cole. People will assume things no matter what we say." He shrugged. "Let them assume. As long as we know the truth, that is what matters. Besides, I figure your character is strong enough to survive some gossip. Anyone who matters will see the situation for what it is." Delilah was not sure she shared his optimism, but she appreciated the sentiment. "I should get started on supper," she said. "I assume you have been living on beans and hardtack," Cole grinned. "Mostly. I am not much of a cook, I will admit. My sister used to say I could burn water if you gave me half a chance." "Your sister?" Delilah asked, filing away this small piece of personal information. "Back in Colorado," Cole said, and something in his expression closed off slightly. "Married now with 2 kids. I have not seen her in a couple years." Before Delilah could ask anything else, he continued, "I will get your trunk into the bedroom and then take care of the horse. By the time I am done, maybe you will have worked a miracle in the kitchen." He left before she could press him for more details, and Delilah decided not to push. They were still strangers, after all, despite the unusual circumstances that had brought them together. If Cole Turner had secrets in his past, well, so did she. Everyone did out here in the territory, where people came to reinvent themselves or escape things they would rather forget. The supplies in the kitchen were basic but adequate. She found dried beef, beans, flour, and a few precious eggs that must have cost Cole a premium at the general store. There were also onions, some withered potatoes, and a jar of preserved tomatoes that looked homemade. Within an hour, Delilah had coaxed the stove to proper heat and produced a meal that was simple but substantial. Beef and beans with a pan of cornbread that actually rose properly, plus coffee strong enough to strip paint. Cole came in just as she was setting the table, his eyes widening at the sight and smell of real food. "I take back what I said about miracles. You are some kind of magician." "It is just food," Delilah said, but she felt a small flush of pleasure at his obvious appreciation. It had been a long time since anyone had looked at something she made with such genuine enthusiasm. They sat across from each other at the scarred wooden table, and for a few minutes, the only sound was eating. Delilah had not realized how hungry she was until she started eating, and she had to force herself to slow down and eat like a civilized person rather than someone who had been half-starving herself for weeks. "Tell me about the neighbors," Cole said eventually, breaking the comfortable silence. "Who do I need to know? Who should I avoid?" Delilah set down her fork and considered the question. "The nearest ranch is the Cooper place, about 8 miles east, Marcus Cooper and his wife Helen. They have been here longer than anyone except some of the old Spanish families. Good people mostly, but Marcus can be territorial about water rights. That is actually what got Thomas killed." She said it matter-of-factly, surprised at how much easier it was to speak about with Cole than it had been with anyone else. There was a dispute about diversion from the river. Marcus claimed Thomas was taking more than his share. Things got heated, Marcus brought his sons, and someone drew a gun. Thomas died. One of the Cooper boys got shot in the leg, and now everyone is bitter and angry. Cole's expression had gone hard. "Will the Coopers be a problem for me?" "I do not know," Delilah admitted. "The dispute died with Thomas, technically, but the Coopers hold grudges, and they might see you as connected to that situation just by virtue of buying this land." She paused. "Then there is Santiago Ramirez. His family has been in this valley since before the Americans came. He runs sheep, mostly, and does not care much for cattle ranchers. He and Thomas had an understanding, though. Santiago respected that Thomas tried to learn Spanish and made an effort to understand the culture here. You might want to do the same." "Makes sense," Cole said. "Who else?" They talked through supper and well into the evening as Delilah sketched out the social landscape of Abiquiu and the surrounding area. She told him about Father Esteban at the church, who served both the Catholic Spanish families and tried to minister to the Protestant newcomers with mixed success. She told him about the widow Chen, who ran a boarding house and somehow maintained perfect neutrality in all local disputes. She told him about the various families in town, who could be trusted, who could not, and who would smile to your face while plotting your downfall. Cole listened to all of it with the focused attention of a man who understood that information was currency in a place like this. He asked good questions, made mental notes, and occasionally offered observations that showed he was quicker to understand the dynamics than she had expected. "You are good at this," he said finally, when they had exhausted the topic and were both nursing second cups of coffee. "Reading people, understanding how things work. Why did you not leave after Thomas died? You clearly have skills that would translate anywhere." Delilah stared into her coffee cup, watching the dark liquid swirl as she moved it slightly. "I thought about it, but where would I go? I have no family left. My parents died of fever when I was 17. I have no siblings, no cousins that I know of. Thomas was supposed to be my fresh start, my chance at building something. When he died, it felt like that chance died too. I was paralyzed, I suppose. Frozen in place, unable to move forward or back." She looked up and met Cole's eyes. "Until today, I genuinely believed there was no path forward, that my story was over and all that was left was the epilogue." "And now?" Cole asked quietly. "Now I am sitting in my former home, eating supper with a stranger, and somehow that feels less like an ending and more like something else entirely." She smiled, a real smile for the first time in weeks. "I'm not sure what kind of story this is going to be, but at least it is a story." "That is more than I had this morning." Cole returned her smile with one of his own, and something passed between them in that moment, some acknowledgement of shared understanding. "Our story is just beginning," he said softly. "Let's write it together, see where it goes. Maybe it will end up being a good one." "Maybe," Delilah agreed. She finished her coffee and stood gathering the dishes. "But for now, I need to clean up and get some sleep. Morning comes early on a ranch." "Need help?" Cole offered, but she waved him off. "I've got it." "You should get settled in your room." She paused in the doorway to the kitchen, looking back at him. "Thank you, Cole, for today, for this, for pulling me back from that edge, literally and figuratively. Thank me by showing up tomorrow ready to work," he said. "We have a lot to do if we are going to make this place thrive." That night, lying in the bedroom that had once been hers and Thomas's, but now felt strangely neutral, Delilah stared at the ceiling and thought about the twists fate could take. This morning she had walked to a canyon with death in mind. Tonight she was planning a future. It was not the future she had imagined when she was 18 and full of dreams, but maybe that was all right. Maybe second chances did not look like first ones, and maybe that was the point. The days that followed fell into a pattern that was both exhausting and oddly comforting. Delilah woke before dawn to start breakfast while Cole tended to the morning chores. They ate together, discussed the day's plans, and then split up to tackle their respective tasks. Delilah focused on the house, cleaning years of accumulated neglect from corners and crevices, washing windows until they sparkled, and generally making the space livable. Cole worked on the outbuildings and fences, repairing what could be saved and rebuilding what could not. In the afternoons, they often worked together. Delilah helped him string wire for new fence lines, her hands learning calluses in new places as she stretched and stapled while he set posts. Cole helped her repair the chicken coop, showing surprising skill with carpentry as they replaced rotted boards and patched holes. They worked in companionable near silence much of the time, comfortable with each other in a way that surprised them both. Evenings were for talking. They would sit on the porch after supper, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and purple, and share pieces of their pasts. Delilah learned that Cole was 27, that he had grown up on a ranch in southern Colorado, and that he had left under circumstances he was still reluctant to discuss in detail. She gathered there had been a woman involved in some kind of tragedy, but she did not push for specifics. Cole learned that Delilah had married Thomas more out of desperation than love, that her parents had died leaving her nothing, and that Thomas had seemed like stability in a world that had suddenly become terrifyingly uncertain. She had tried to love him, had tried to be a good wife, but there had always been something missing, some spark that she had read about in books but never felt in reality. "You think that is real?" she asked one evening about 2 weeks into their arrangement. "That kind of consuming passion that makes people do crazy things? Or is that just something writers invented to make stories more interesting?" Cole was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the darkening landscape. "I think it is real," he said finally. "I have seen it." "Felt it even though it did not end well," he glanced at her. "The woman I mentioned back in Colorado, her name was Margaret. We grew up together, planned to get married, but her father did not approve of me, thought I was not good enough for his daughter. He arranged for her to marry someone else, someone with more money and better prospects." "What did you do?" Delilah asked softly. "Nothing," Cole said, and there was bitterness in his voice. "That is the hell of it. Margaret asked me to run away with her, to forget about her father's approval and just go. But I was young and stupid and thought I needed to prove myself first, thought I needed to have enough money and land to show her father I was worthy. By the time I realized that was never going to happen, that he would never approve no matter what I did, it was too late. She was married, miserable from what I heard, and I was trapped watching from a distance as the woman I loved lived a life with someone else." "Is that why you left Colorado?" Delilah asked. "Part of it," Cole admitted. "Margaret's husband was cruel. Everyone knew it, but no one did anything because he had money and influence. One night I heard he had hurt her badly. I went to their house, fully intending to kill him if necessary to protect her. We fought. I put him in bed for a week, but I did not kill him. Margaret begged me to leave, said my being there only made things worse for her, so I left, sold everything I had, came down here looking for a place where no one knew my history and I could start over." He looked at Delilah. "That is what I was doing at that canyon the day I found you. Not contemplating jumping, but thinking about how sometimes life gives you opportunities to start over and you have to be brave enough to take them." Delilah absorbed this, understanding him better now. "Do you still love her, Margaret?" "No," Cole said, and he sounded certain. "I love who she was when we were young and everything seemed possible, but that person does not exist anymore if she ever really did. We both changed. She made her choices, I made mine, and now we are living with them. That is life in the territory. You cannot spend forever looking backward, or you will trip over what is right in front of you." It was good advice, and Delilah tried to take it to heart. She found herself thinking less about Thomas as the days passed, and more about the future she was building with Cole. It was a strange partnership, professional on the surface, but growing into something deeper underneath. She caught herself watching him as he worked, admiring the efficient way he moved, the patience he showed with difficult tasks. More than once she looked up to find him watching her too, and the expression in his eyes made her heart beat faster. After a month, true to his word, Cole sat her down to discuss whether their arrangement should continue. They were on the porch, evening shadows stretching long across the yard, and Delilah felt nervous in a way she had not since that first day. "So," Cole said, his hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, "we have reached the end of our trial period. I want to know how you feel about continuing this arrangement." Delilah had been expecting this conversation, but now that it was here, she found herself uncertain how to begin. "I think it has worked well," she said carefully. "The house is in good shape, you have made progress on the ranch, and we work together well. I would like to continue if you are satisfied with my work." "More than satisfied," Cole said. "You have exceeded every expectation I had, but that is not really what I am asking." He set down his coffee and turned to face her fully. "I need to know if you are happy here, Delilah, not just content or making the best of a bad situation, but actually happy. Because if you are not, if you want something different, then you should pursue that. I will give you your month's wages plus extra to get you started somewhere else, and I will do it with no hard feelings." The question caught her off guard. Was she happy? Delilah examined her feelings, trying to be honest with herself. The despair that had driven her to that canyon edge was gone. She no longer woke up wondering why she should bother getting out of bed. She looked forward to her days, to the work, to the conversations with Cole. She felt useful and valued in a way she never had during her marriage to Thomas. "I am happy," she said, and realized as she said it that it was true. "Happier than I have been in years, maybe ever. I like this work. I like this place. I like—" She hesitated, then decided to be brave. "I like you, Cole. I like who I am when I am around you, so yes, I want to stay. If you will have me." Something shifted in Cole's expression, a subtle relaxation of muscles she had not realized were tense. "I will have you," he said softly, "for as long as you want to stay, but I need to be honest with you about something." He took a deep breath. "This last month, working with you, getting to know you, it has been the best month I have had in years. But it has also been torture in some ways, because I have developed feelings for you that go beyond a professional relationship. I am attracted to you, Delilah. Not just physically, though God knows you are beautiful, but to who you are as a person. Your strength, your intelligence, your resilience. I find myself thinking about you constantly, and I need to know if that is something you might ever want to explore, or if I should work on keeping those feelings to myself." Delilah's heart was racing now, her palms suddenly damp. She had known on some level that this was coming. Had felt the tension building between them, the lingering glances and accidental touches that seemed to happen more and more frequently. But hearing him say it out loud made it real in a way that was both terrifying and exhilarating. "I have feelings for you too," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have been trying not to, telling myself it is too soon, that I should not be thinking about another man when Thomas has been dead less than a year. But I cannot help it. When I am with you, I feel alive in a way I never did with Thomas. When you smile at me, my stomach does flips. When you touch my hand, even accidentally, I feel it for hours afterward. I do not know what that means or where it could lead, but I know I do not want to ignore it." Cole reached across the space between them and took her hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. "We can take this slow," he said. "We do not have to rush into anything, but I want you to know my intentions are honorable. I am not looking for something temporary or casual. If we pursue this, I am in it for the long term. You need to know that going in." "I do know that," Delilah said. "You are the most honorable man I have ever met, Cole Turner. That is one of the things I love about you." She stopped, realizing what she had just said. "I mean, one of the things I really like about you. Not love. I did not mean," Cole laughed, a genuine sound of joy that made her own lips curve into a smile despite her embarrassment. "Easy there. We will get to the love part eventually, I hope. For now, let's just say we are two people who like each other very much and want to see where that leads. How does that sound?" "That sounds perfect," Delilah said and squeezed his hand. They sat there on the porch as the stars came out, holding hands and talking about everything and nothing. It was not a grand romantic gesture, no sweeping declaration or passionate kiss. But it was real and honest, and it felt like the beginning of something neither of them had expected but both desperately wanted. The next few weeks brought subtle changes to their dynamic. They were still business partners, still focused on building up the ranch, but there was an undercurrent of romance now that colored everything they did. Cole started bringing her small gifts: wildflowers picked during his fence checks, a hair ribbon he bought in town that matched her eyes, a book of poetry he found at the general store. Delilah responded in kind, leaving notes in his lunch pail, making his favorite foods, staying up late to mend his clothes with neat, careful stitches. They stole moments together when work allowed. A kiss in the barn, quick and sweet and leaving them both breathless. Holding hands under the table during supper when no one could see. Sitting close together on the porch, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist, watching the sun set and talking about their dreams for the future. It was during one of these evening conversations that Cole first mentioned Santiago Ramirez again. "I have been thinking about what you said about making an effort with the local Spanish families," he said. "I need to pay Santiago a visit, introduce myself properly, and make sure there are no hard feelings about me buying this land. Would you come with me? I think having you there would help smooth the way." Delilah agreed, and the following Sunday they rode together to the Ramirez Ranch, which lay about 10 miles southwest of their own property. Santiago's spread was larger and more established, with a sprawling adobe house that showed signs of multiple generations of additions and improvements. Sheep dotted the hillsides, tended by shepherds who waved as Cole and Delilah passed. Santiago himself came out to greet them, a man in his early 50s with silver threading through his black hair and the weathered face of someone who had spent a lifetime outdoors. He was dressed in well-made clothes that spoke of prosperity without ostentation, and his dark eyes were sharp and assessing as he looked at Cole. "Mrs. Peterson," he said, nodding to Delilah with genuine warmth. "It is good to see you. You are looking well." Then, switching to English that carried only a faint accent, he addressed Cole. "You must be the new owner of the Peterson Ranch. I am Santiago Ramirez. Welcome to the valley." Cole dismounted and extended his hand, which Santiago shook after a moment's hesitation. "Cole Turner, sir. I appreciate you seeing us without notice. I wanted to introduce myself and make sure we start off on the right foot." Santiago's expression remained neutral. "That depends on what kind of neighbor you intend to be. The Petersons were good people, for the most part. Respected boundaries, understood that water is precious, did not cause unnecessary trouble. If you can do the same, we will have no problems." "That is exactly what I intend," Cole said. "I am not looking to make enemies or start disputes. I just want to run a decent operation, be a good neighbor, and build a life here. Mrs. Emerson has been helping me understand the local customs and dynamics, and she speaks highly of you." Santiago's gaze shifted to Delilah. Mrs. Emerson now, is it? You have gone back to your maiden name. I have, Delilah confirmed, and I am working for Mr. Turner, helping him get established. Something flickered in Santiago's eyes, some assessment or judgment, but his expression remained pleasant. I see. Well, if you vouch for him, Mrs. Emerson, that carries weight with me. You always struck me as someone with good judgment. He turned back to Cole. You should know that the Coopers are spreading stories about you in town, saying you are a troublemaker from Colorado running from the law. I do not put much stock in gossip, but you should be aware. Cole's jaw tightened. I am not running from the law. I had personal reasons for leaving Colorado, but nothing illegal and nothing that should concern anyone here. I believe you, Santiago said, surprising them both. Marcus Cooper sees enemies everywhere. His pride was wounded by what happened with Thomas Peterson, and now he needs someone new to blame. You are convenient, but word of advice, watch your back around the Cooper boys. They are not as smart as they think they are, and that makes them dangerous. They talked for another hour, Santiago asking intelligent questions about Cole's plans for the ranch, and offering advice based on decades of experience in the territory. His wife Rosa came out and insisted they stay for dinner, and over a meal of incredible food, the conversation shifted from business to more personal topics. Santiago and Rosa had 4 grown children and 11 grandchildren, and they clearly took pride in the family legacy they were building. As they prepared to leave, Rosa pulled Delilah aside. That man looks at you the way my Santiago looked at me when we were young, she said quietly. Like you are the sun and he is trying to warm himself in your light. That is a good thing, Majida. Do not let the past keep you from embracing the future. Delilah felt her cheeks warm. We are just beginning to explore our feelings, she admitted. It still feels strange to think about being with someone other than Thomas. Rosa squeezed her hand. Thomas was a good man, but he was not the right man for you. Anyone with eyes could see that. This Cole, though, he sees you, the real you. That is precious and rare. Do not let it slip away because of what other people might think or say. The ride home was quiet, both of them processing the day. Finally, as they approached the ranch, Cole spoke. Santiago and Rosa are good people. I appreciate you facilitating that introduction. They are the best people I know, Delilah agreed. And I think Rosa likes you, which means Santiago will give you a fair chance, whatever the Coopers say or do. About what Santiago said, Cole began, but Delilah cut him off. I do not care what the Coopers are saying. I know your character, Cole. That is what matters to me. He smiled at her, and in that moment Delilah felt something shift in her chest. It was not just attraction or fondness. It was deeper than that, warmer and more permanent. It was, she realized with a start, the beginning of love. Real love, the kind she had read about but never experienced. The kind that made her want to be better, do better, build something lasting. The trouble with the Coopers came 2 weeks later. Delilah and Cole had been working on clearing brush from one of the eastern pastures when they heard the sound of horses approaching. Cole straightened, his hand moving instinctively to the rifle he kept on his saddle, then relaxing when he saw it was just riders, not a threat. But as the group got closer, Delilah felt her stomach drop. Marcus Cooper rode at the head of a group of 5 men, his 2 sons flanking him and 3 ranch hands bringing up the rear. Marcus was in his 60s, with a hard face and harder eyes that had always reminded Delilah of Flint. Turner, Marcus called out as they approached, not bothering with pleasantries. We need to have a conversation. Cole set down the tool he had been using and walked forward, positioning himself slightly in front of Delilah in a way that was protective without being obvious. Mr. Cooper. What can I do for you? You can explain what you think you are doing, diverting water from the river, Marcus said flatly. That water is allocated, Turner. You do not get to just help yourself. Cole frowned. I have not diverted anything. I have been using the existing system that was here when I bought the place, nothing more. If there is an issue with allocation, I am happy to discuss it reasonably. Reasonably? Marcus's laugh was harsh. Like Thomas Peterson wanted to discuss it reasonably. We all know how that ended. I am telling you now, Turner, stay within your legal water rights or there will be consequences. Delilah stepped forward, anger overriding her better judgment. Thomas stayed within his legal rights, Mr. Cooper, and you know it. Your pride got him killed, nothing more. Do not try to make the same mistake twice. One of Marcus's sons, the one named Jacob, pointed at her. You need to keep your woman quiet, Turner. This is men's business. She is not my woman, she is my business partner, Cole said, his voice gone cold. And she has every right to speak. More right than you do, since she knows the history here and knows you are manufacturing a grievance where none exists. The tension ratcheted up instantly. Marcus's other son, Peter, moved his hand toward the gun at his hip. Cole did not move, but Delilah could feel the coiled readiness in him, like a spring compressed and waiting to release. Gentlemen, came a new voice, and everyone turned to see Santiago Ramirez riding up with two of his sons. Is there a problem here? Marcus's expression soured further. This does not concern you, Ramirez. Stay out of it. When my neighbors are having a dispute, it concerns me, Santiago said mildly. He stopped his horse between the two groups, a clear position of neutrality. What seems to be the issue? Cooper is claiming I am stealing water, Cole said evenly. I am not. I am using the same diversion Thomas Peterson used, which I was told was legal and proper. Santiago nodded. It is legal and proper. I can confirm that as I was here when the water rights were allocated. Thomas Peterson, God rest his soul, had every right to the water he was taking. And now Cole Turner has that same right. If you have an issue with the allocation, Marcus, take it up with the territorial authorities, but do not come here making threats. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Marcus jerked his horse's head around. This is not over, he said to Cole. You watch yourself, Turner. Accidents happen all the time on ranches. He rode off, his sons and hands following, leaving dust hanging in the air. Santiago waited until they were out of earshot before speaking. That man is going to be a problem. He cannot let go of what happened with Thomas, and now he has transferred all that anger onto you. He looked at Cole seriously. You need to be careful. The Coopers have friends in town, people who will look the other way if something happens to you. I can handle myself, Cole said, but his expression was troubled. I do not doubt it, Santiago replied, but you should not have to. I will spread the word among my people and friends. The Coopers try anything, there will be witnesses and consequences. That should give them pause. He tipped his hat to Delilah. Mrs. Emerson, keep this one out of trouble if you can. After Santiago left, Delilah and Cole stood in silence for a moment. Finally, Delilah said, That was about Thomas, not about you. Marcus needs someone to blame for his son getting shot, and since Thomas is dead, you are the convenient target. I know, Cole said. But knowing that does not make it less dangerous. I need to be on my guard now, and you need to be careful too. I do not trust the Coopers not to try something underhanded. They worked the rest of the day in tense silence, both hyper-aware of their surroundings. That night, Cole checked all the locks twice and made sure the rifle was loaded and within easy reach. Delilah tried not to let fear take hold, but she kept remembering Thomas lying dead in the street, killed over something stupid and pointless. Come here, Cole said softly, and Delilah realized she was standing at the window, staring out into the darkness as though expecting threats to materialize from the shadows. She went to him, and he wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. "We are going to be all right, I promise you." "You cannot promise that," Delilah said against his chest. "Life in the territory does not come with guarantees." "No," Cole agreed, "but I can promise I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. And I can promise that whatever happens, we face it together." "You are not alone anymore, Delilah. Neither am I. That counts for something." She tilted her head back to look at him, and the intensity in his eyes took her breath away. "I love you," she said, the words spilling out before she could second-guess them. "I know it is fast. I know people will say it is too soon, but I do not care. I love you, Cole Turner, and I need you to know that before anything else happens." His smile was brilliant. "I love you too. Have loved you for weeks, maybe since that first day when you faced me down with fire in your eyes and told me you would not sell yourself short. You are the bravest, strongest, most incredible woman I have ever met, and I thank God every day that I found you at that canyon." He kissed her then, deeply and thoroughly, and Delilah felt her worries fade into the background. Whatever came next, they would face it together. That was enough. The weeks following the confrontation with the Coopers were tense but uneventful. Cole took Santiago's warnings seriously, varying his routine and staying alert for any signs of trouble. Delilah did the same, never venturing far from the house alone and making sure someone knew where she was at all times. Their relationship continued to deepen. They still maintained separate rooms for propriety's sake, but they spent their evenings together on the porch, talking and dreaming about the future. Cole spoke about building up the herd, maybe bringing in some quality breeding stock. Delilah talked about starting a garden, getting chickens, making the ranch a true home. "Would you marry me?" Cole asked one evening, the question coming out of nowhere as they watched the stars emerge. "I know it is fast. I know people will talk, but I am sure about my feelings, Delilah. I want to spend my life with you. I want to build this ranch with you, grow old with you, write our story together. What do you say?" Delilah's heart felt like it might burst. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, I will marry you, Cole Turner. I cannot imagine wanting anything else." They married 3 weeks later in a small ceremony at the church in Abiquiu, with Father Esteban officiating and Santiago and Rosa standing as witnesses. It was nothing like Delilah's first wedding, which had been a practical affair with little joy or celebration. This time, she wore a simple white dress that Rosa had helped her sew, and she carried wildflowers that Cole had picked that morning. She felt beautiful and loved and so full of hope she thought she might float away. Cole looked at her like she was the answer to every prayer he had ever prayed, and when he said his vows, his voice was steady and sure. "I promise to love you, honor you, and stand by you through whatever comes. Your story was not over, Delilah. Our story is just beginning, and I cannot wait to write it together." The reception was held at Santiago's ranch, with half the town invited despite the short notice. Even some people who had been cold to Delilah after Thomas's death came to wish them well, perhaps swayed by Santiago's obvious approval or simply caught up in the joy of a wedding. The Coopers were notably absent, but Delilah refused to let that shadow her happiness. That night, in the bedroom that was now truly theirs, Cole made love to Delilah with a tenderness that brought tears to her eyes. It was nothing like her experiences with Thomas, mechanical and dutiful. This was passion and connection, two people coming together as equals, giving and receiving pleasure in equal measure. Afterwards, lying in Cole's arms with her head on his chest, Delilah felt a peace she had never known. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" Cole asked, his hand stroking her hair. "For saving me, for seeing me, for loving me enough to give me a reason to keep living." Cole tilted her face up so he could look in her eyes. "You saved yourself, Delilah. You made the choice to step back from that edge. You made the choice to come here, to work, to build something new. All I did was offer you an opportunity. You are the one who took it and made it into something beautiful." She kissed him, soft and sweet, and knew he was right. She had saved herself. But having Cole by her side made the saving worthwhile. The seasons turned, and the ranch began to thrive. Cole proved to be an excellent rancher, combining his Colorado experience with the knowledge Delilah had gained from her years in New Mexico. They built up a small herd of quality cattle, established good relationships with buyers in Santa Fe, and even started breeding horses that commanded premium prices. The house improved too, with Delilah adding touches that made it a true home. Curtains in the windows, a garden that produced vegetables even in the harsh climate, chickens that provided fresh eggs. Their relationship with Santiago and Rosa deepened into genuine friendship. The Ramirez family became like the family neither Cole nor Delilah had, inviting them to celebrations and holidays, offering advice and support, and generally treating them like beloved relatives. Through Santiago, Cole built connections with other Spanish families in the valley, learning the language and customs, earning respect through his genuine efforts to fit into the community. The Coopers remained hostile but distant, apparently deciding that with Santiago's protection, Cole was too risky a target. Marcus glared whenever he saw them in town, and his sons made veiled comments, but nothing escalated beyond words. Cole stayed alert but gradually relaxed as months passed without incident. It was in the spring of 1885, almost a year after their wedding, that Delilah realized she was pregnant. She had suspected for a few weeks, but had waited to be certain before telling Cole. When she finally did, presenting him with the news over breakfast one morning, his reaction was everything she could have hoped for. He dropped his fork, his mouth falling open in shock. Then a grin spread across his face, wide and genuine, and full of such joy that Delilah started laughing. "Are you serious? We are going to have a baby." "We are," Delilah confirmed, her hand moving instinctively to her still flat stomach. "Rosa says probably late October or early November based on my symptoms." Cole was around the table in an instant, pulling her up into his arms and spinning her around despite her laughing protests. "We are going to have a baby," he repeated like he could not quite believe it. "You are going to be a mother. I am going to be a father. Delilah, this is incredible." "I was hoping you would be happy," she said, though she had never really doubted it. Cole would be an amazing father. She had known that from watching how he interacted with Santiago's grandchildren. "Happy does not begin to cover it," Cole said. He set her down carefully, suddenly treating her like she was made of glass. "You need to sit down. Should you be standing? What did Rosa say? Should you be resting more?" Delilah laughed at his sudden anxiety. "Rosa said I am healthy and strong and that I should continue my normal routine for now." "Pregnant women are not fragile, Cole. I can still work." "Within reason," Cole said firmly. "No more heavy lifting, no climbing." "No," she silenced him with a kiss. "We will figure it out together," she said, "like we figure out everything else." The pregnancy progressed smoothly, with Rosa acting as midwife and advisor. Delilah continued working through the summer, slowing down only as her belly grew too large for comfort. Cole was attentive to the point of being overprotective, constantly worried about her doing too much or not resting enough. She found it equal parts endearing and frustrating, but she could not really be angry when his concern came from such obvious love. They spent the long summer evenings talking about names and planning for the baby's arrival. Cole built a beautiful cradle from oak, carving intricate designs into the wood with patient precision. Delilah sewed tiny clothes and blankets, her hands working the needle with practiced ease. They turned the small storage room into a nursery, painting it cheerful colors and setting up everything they would need. "What if I am not a good father?" Cole asked one night as they lay in bed, his hand resting on Delilah's belly, feeling the baby kick. "You will be an excellent father," Delilah said with complete certainty. "You are patient and kind and hardworking. You will teach our child those values just by being yourself." "I want to be better than my father was," Cole said quietly. "He was not a bad man, but he was hard, unforgiving. I never felt like I could measure up to his expectations. I do not want our children to feel that way." "They will not," Delilah promised. "You will love them and support them and show them every day that they are valued. That is what matters." The baby came on a cold November evening, arriving 2 weeks earlier than expected and with considerable drama. Delilah had been kneading bread when her water broke, and the sudden realization that labor had begun sent Cole into a panic that would have been funny if Delilah had not been contracting every few minutes. Rosa arrived within an hour, summoned by Cole's frantic ride to the Ramirez ranch. She took one look at Delilah and got to work, issuing calm instructions and radiating the kind of confidence that came from attending dozens of births. Santiago came with her and dragged Cole out of the house, probably saving Delilah from having to watch her husband have a nervous breakdown while she was trying to bring a child into the world. The labor was long and difficult, lasting well into the night and leaving Delilah exhausted and wondering if she would survive. But Rosa was there through all of it, encouraging and supporting, telling her she was strong enough to do this. And finally, as dawn broke over the New Mexico landscape, Delilah gave one final push and heard the most beautiful sound in the world, her baby's first cry. "A boy," Rosa announced, placing the squalling infant on Delilah's chest. "A healthy, strong boy. Congratulations, Majida." Delilah looked down at her son, at his red face and tiny fists and the shock of dark hair on his head, and felt her heart expand in ways she had not known were possible. This was her child, hers and Cole's. Proof that their story was not just continuing but growing, creating new chapters neither of them had imagined. Cole came in moments later, his face pale and his eyes wide. "Is she all right? Is the baby all right?" "Come meet your son," Delilah said softly, and watched as Cole approached the bed with the careful steps of a man afraid he might be dreaming. He looked down at the baby, and Delilah saw tears streak down his face. "He is perfect," Cole whispered. "Absolutely perfect, just like his mother." They named him Samuel Marcus Turner. Samuel for the store owner who had been kind to Delilah when she had nothing, and Marcus not for Cooper but for Cole's grandfather, a man he spoke of with genuine affection. Little Sam was an easy baby, sleeping well and nursing strongly, and Delilah felt like perhaps she had been blessed with good fortune for once in her life. The first months of parenthood were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. Cole proved to be a natural father, patient with Sam's crying and eager to help with every aspect of his care. He would walk the floor with his son for hours when Sam was fussy, singing off-key lullabies and telling the baby about the ranch he would one day help run. Delilah recovered quickly from the birth, her body bouncing back with the resilience of youth. By the time Sam was 3 months old, she was back to her regular routine, though she now wore the baby in a sling while she worked, keeping him close and content. Rosa teased her about spoiling him, but Delilah did not care. She had lost so much in her life. She was not going to miss a moment with her son. The ranch continued to prosper. Word spread about the quality of Cole's stock, and buyers began coming to them rather than the other way around. They were not wealthy by any means, but they were comfortable, with money in the bank and plans for expansion. Cole talked about building a bigger barn, maybe bringing in more hands to help with the work. Delilah talked about adding rooms to the house, making space for more children if they were blessed with them. More children? Cole asked one evening when Sam was about 6 months old. They were on the porch, watching the sunset while Sam dozed in his mother's arms. "You want more?" "I do," Delilah said. "I always wanted a big family. Being an only child was lonely. I want Sam to have siblings to play with, to fight with, to grow up alongside. Do not you?" "I do," Cole agreed. "Though maybe we could wait a bit before starting on number 2. "I am still getting used to this whole fatherhood thing," Delilah laughed. "You are doing wonderfully at the whole fatherhood thing. Sam adores you." "The feeling is mutual," Cole said, reaching over to stroke his son's soft hair. "I never knew I could love someone this much." "It is terrifying and amazing at the same time." "That is what our whole life together has been," Delilah observed. "Terrifying and amazing. Remember that day at the canyon, when you said our story was just beginning?" "I remember," Cole said softly. "This is better than any story I could have imagined," Delilah said. "You saved my life that day, Cole. But more than that, you gave me a reason to want to live it. You showed me that endings can be beginnings, and that sometimes the best chapters come after you think the book is closed." Cole leaned over and kissed her, gentle so as not to wake the baby. "I love you, Delilah Turner. I love the life we have built together, and I cannot wait to see what comes next." What came next was more than either of them could have imagined. The ranch grew, and with it their reputation. By 1887, Turner Ranch was known throughout the territory as a reliable source of quality livestock. Cole had expanded into horses in a bigger way, breeding and training animals that were smart, sturdy, and well-suited to the harsh terrain. Delilah managed the business side, keeping books with meticulous accuracy and negotiating contracts with a shrewdness that surprised buyers who assumed they could take advantage of a woman. Sam grew into a bright, energetic toddler with his mother's dark hair and his father's unusual blue-green eyes. He loved the animals, showing no fear of creatures 10 times his size, and spent hours following his father around the ranch, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. Cole was patient with his endless questions, explaining everything from how to mend a fence to why the sky changed colors at sunset. In the spring of 1888, Delilah found herself pregnant again. This time the pregnancy was easier, perhaps because she knew what to expect, and she continued working almost until the day she went into labor. Their second child, a daughter they named Catherine Rose, was born in July during a thunderstorm that Sam found terrifying and fascinating in equal measure. Catherine was a different baby than Sam had been, more demanding and less easily soothed. But she was also full of personality from the start, with a stubborn streak that reminded Cole of his wife and a smile that could light up a room. Sam was initially suspicious of this tiny creature who had invaded his world. But within days, he had decided she was his responsibility to protect, and he appointed himself her guardian and translator. Life settled into a rhythm that was busy but fulfilling. The days were full of work, and the nights full of family. Cole taught Sam to ride when the boy was barely 4, starting him on a gentle mare and gradually working up to more challenging mounts. Delilah taught Catherine her letters almost as soon as she could talk, reading to her from the small library they had accumulated over the years. The community around them had changed too. More families had moved into the valley, drawn by the relative stability and opportunity. Abiquiu was growing, adding new businesses and even talking about a proper school. Santiago and Rosser remained close friends, their own grandchildren growing up alongside Sam and Catherine, and the two families spent holidays and celebrations together. The Coopers had largely faded from concern. Marcus had died of a heart attack in 1886, and his sons had sold most of the ranch and moved to California, seeking opportunity in the gold fields. The few Coopers who remained in the valley seemed to have decided that old grudges were not worth maintaining, and relations, while not warm, were at least civil. It was a good life, the kind Delilah had dreamed of, but never believed she would have. She often found herself pausing in the middle of a task to simply look around and marvel at how far she had come. From that moment at the canyon's edge, certain her story was over to this. A thriving ranch, a husband she loved deeply, two healthy children, and a future that stretched out bright and full of promise. "What are you thinking about?" Cole asked one evening. They were in bed, the house finally quiet after getting both children settled. His arm was around her shoulders, her head resting on his chest, and Delilah could hear his heartbeat steady and strong beneath her ear. "I am thinking about how lucky I am," Delilah said. "How different my life is from what I expected it would be." "Better or worse?" Cole asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "So much better," Delilah said. "I never knew I could be this happy, never knew life could feel this full. When I was married to Thomas, I thought I was content, but I did not understand what I was missing until I found you." Cole pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "I feel the same way. Margaret was just a girl I thought I loved because everyone expected us to end up together. But you, Delilah, you are my partner in every sense of the word. You challenge me, support me, stand beside me as an equal. That is what love should be. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had not been at that canyon that day?" Delilah asked. "If you had checked a different fence line or decided to do something else entirely?" "Sometimes," Cole admitted. "But then I remember that I was there. I did find you, and everything that has happened since flows from that moment. Maybe it was fate, or maybe it was just dumb luck, but either way, I am grateful for it every single day." They lay in comfortable silence for a while before Delilah spoke again. "I want to have more children. At least one more, maybe two. I want this house full of noise and chaos and love." Cole chuckled. "You say that now when they are both asleep. Ask me again tomorrow when Sam is trying to ride the barn cat and Catherine is refusing to eat anything that is not cake. Even then," Delilah said firmly. "Especially then. I love our family, Cole. I want to grow it if we are blessed with the opportunity." "Then that is what we will do," Cole said. "Though maybe we could wait until Catherine is sleeping through the night consistently. I am not as young as I used to be, and these interrupted nights are taking their toll." Delilah laughed and swatted his chest playfully. "You are 29, not 90. I think you can handle it." Their third child, a boy they named Daniel, was born in 1889, followed by another daughter, Elizabeth, in 1891. The house that had once seemed adequate now felt cramped. So Cole spent the better part of a year adding on, expanding the original 4 rooms to 8, and building a second story that gave them proper bedrooms for all the children. It was a massive undertaking, but he had help from Santiago's sons and several other neighbors who pitched in, and by the time Elizabeth was born, they had a house that truly felt like a home. The ranch continued to expand as well. Cole brought in a foreman, a steady man named William who had worked cattle all his life and knew the business inside and out. With William handling the day-to-day operations, Cole had more time to focus on breeding and training, developing a reputation that brought buyers from as far away as Texas and Kansas. Delilah hired help in the house too, a young woman named Maria who assisted with the children and the endless cooking and cleaning that came with a large family. Sam, now 7 years old, was already talking about the day he would run the ranch. He was serious and responsible beyond his years, the kind of child who could be trusted with important tasks. Catherine, 5, was his opposite, wild and creative, always coming up with elaborate games and stories. Daniel at 2 was still figuring out his personality, but he seemed to have inherited his father's patience and his mother's determination. Baby Elizabeth was too young for her character to be clear, but she was a happy child who loved being the center of attention. "Our story has gotten complicated," Cole observed one Sunday afternoon. They were having a rare moment of peace on the porch while the children played in the yard under Maria's watchful eye. "Remember when it was just the two of us?" "Barely," Delilah admitted. "That feels like a lifetime ago." "Do you miss it? The simplicity?" "Not for a second," Cole said firmly. "This is what I always wanted even when I did not know it. A family, a home, a legacy to leave behind. You gave me that, Delilah. You and these children are my greatest accomplishment, more valuable than all the land or livestock in the territory." Delilah reached over and took his hand, their fingers intertwining automatically. "We gave each other that. Our story is not just mine or yours, Cole. It is ours. We wrote it together, just like you said we would that first day. And we are not done yet," Cole added. "Still plenty of pages left to fill." He was right. The years continued to unfold, bringing new challenges and triumphs. In 1893, a drought hit the territory hard, testing everyone's resources and resilience. The Turner Ranch survived better than most thanks to Cole's careful water management and the good relationship he had maintained with Santiago and other neighbors who controlled upstream sources. They shared resources, helped each other through the hardest months, and came out the other side with their community stronger for the shared hardship. Sam turned 12 in 1893 and began taking on real responsibility around the ranch. Cole taught him everything he knew about horses and cattle, about reading the land and the sky, about dealing fairly with buyers and hands. The boy soaked it all up, asking intelligent questions and showing a natural aptitude that made his father proud. He also showed a protective streak toward his younger siblings that reminded Delilah of Cole, always watching out for them and willing to take the blame when they got into trouble. Catherine at 10 was becoming a young woman, though she fought against the constraints that society tried to place on girls. She wanted to ride like her brother, to work cattle, to do all the things boys did. Delilah encouraged this independence while also teaching her the skills she would need as a woman in the territory: cooking, sewing, managing a household. Catherine grumbled but learned, and Delilah suspected her daughter would grow up to be a force of nature, someone who would not let anyone tell her what she could or could not do. Daniel and Elizabeth were still young, 7 and 4 respectively, but already showing distinct personalities. Daniel was quiet and thoughtful, happiest with a book or watching his father work with the horses. Elizabeth was outgoing and charming, able to wrap anyone around her little finger with a smile and a well-timed plea. In 1894, Delilah discovered she was pregnant again, a surprise as she had assumed they were done having children. She was 34 now, and this pregnancy was harder than the previous ones, leaving her tired and uncomfortable in ways she did not remember from before. Cole worried constantly, and even the children seemed to sense something was different, becoming more helpful and less troublesome than usual. The baby, another boy they named James, was born in early 1895 after a difficult labor that left Delilah weak and recovering for weeks. Rosa was there throughout, as she had been for all of Delilah's births, and she spoke quietly to Cole afterward about ensuring this was the last pregnancy. Delilah was not as young as she had been, and another birth might be dangerous. Cole took this advice seriously, and though they never discussed the specifics, Delilah understood that their family was complete. 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls, ranging from baby James to Sam, who was now on the cusp of becoming a man. It was more than enough, more than Delilah had ever dreamed of having when she stood at that canyon's edge all those years ago. As James grew from infant to toddler, the family rhythm adjusted to accommodate one more. The older children helped with the younger ones, a natural progression in large families. Sam, now 14, was essentially Cole's apprentice, working full days on the ranch and showing every sign of becoming an excellent rancher in his own right. Catherine was learning the business side from her mother, showing an unexpected aptitude for numbers and negotiation. The year 1896 brought a crisis that tested everything they had built. A group of rustlers had been working the territory, hitting ranches seemingly at random and making off with livestock before anyone could respond. The Turner Ranch had been lucky so far, but Cole knew it was only a matter of time before they became a target. He was right. In July, rustlers hit them in the middle of the night, making off with nearly 30 head of cattle before anyone realized what was happening. Cole organized a posse immediately, riding out with William and several hands to track the thieves. Delilah watched him go with her heart in her throat, remembering all too well what had happened to Thomas over a conflict far less serious than theft. Santiago and his sons joined the hunt, along with several other ranchers who were tired of losing stock to criminals. They tracked the rustlers for 3 days, finally catching up with them near the Colorado border. There was a standoff, tense moments where Delilah knew violence could erupt at any second. But Cole kept his head, negotiating rather than shooting, and in the end, the rustlers surrendered without a fight. The cattle were recovered, the thieves were turned over to the territorial marshal, and everyone returned home safely. "I thought I was going to lose you," Delilah said that night, holding Cole tight. "When you rode out, all I could think about was Thomas and how quickly everything can change." "I know," Cole said. "I was careful, I promise. I was not going to take risks and leave you and the children." "We have too much to lose." "We do," Delilah agreed. "We have everything to lose, this life we have built, this family, this future. I do not want to lose any of it." "You will not," Cole promised. "I am not going anywhere. Our story is not done yet, remember, still lots of pages to fill." The rustler incident seemed to be a turning point for the territory. Law enforcement became more organized and effective, and the random violence that had once been common became increasingly rare. The Turner Ranch thrived in this new stability, expanding operations and increasing profits year after year. By 1899, Sam was 18, a young man ready to step into real leadership on the ranch. Cole had been gradually turning over more responsibility, and that summer he made it official, naming Sam as his partner in the operation. The boy, now a man, took the responsibility seriously, showing the same dedication and work ethic his father had always demonstrated. Catherine, at 16, was preparing to go to school in Santa Fe, a bold move for a girl from the territory, but one that fit her adventurous spirit. She wanted to study business and eventually return to help run the ranch's financial operations. Cole was proud of her ambition, even as he worried about her being so far from home. Daniel, at 14, was showing talent with horses that exceeded even his father's considerable skill. He could gentle the wildest Mustang, could read an animal's moods and needs with uncanny accuracy. Cole began focusing his training time on Daniel, teaching him everything about breeding and training, knowing this was where his son's future lay. Elizabeth at 10 was a social butterfly, already organizing events and gatherings, making sure everyone in the family stayed connected. She had a gift for bringing people together, for smoothing over conflicts before they became serious problems. James at 4 was still too young for his path to be clear, but he was a happy, healthy child, and that was enough for now. Delilah looked at her family assembled around the dinner table one evening in early 1900 and felt a wave of gratitude so strong it almost overwhelmed her. This was her life. These people, this place, this story they had written together. It was not perfect. There had been hard times and struggles and moments of fear. But it was real and it was theirs, and it was more than she had ever dared to hope for. "What are you thinking about, Mama?" Catherine asked, noticing her mother's distant expression. "I am thinking about stories," Delilah said. "About how they begin and end, and how sometimes the ending you think is coming is actually just the beginning of something better." "That is very philosophical, Mama," Sam said with a grin that reminded Delilah so much of his father she had to smile. "Your mother is a philosophical woman," Cole said, catching her eye and winking. "It is one of the many things I love about her." "Ugh, you two are so romantic," Catherine said, rolling her eyes in the way of teenagers everywhere. But she was smiling, and Delilah knew her daughter appreciated seeing her parents so clearly in love even after all these years. After dinner, after the children had scattered to their various evening activities, Cole and Delilah found themselves alone on the porch. It was their ritual, had been for years now, these quiet moments watching the sun set over the land they had built together. "Do you ever think about that day at the canyon?" Cole asked. It was a question he asked occasionally, usually when he was in a reflective mood. "I think about it all the time," Delilah admitted. "I think about the woman I was then, how lost and hopeless I felt. And then I look at our life now and I can hardly believe it is real. You saved me that day, Cole. In every way a person can be saved." "We saved each other," Cole corrected gently. "I was just as lost as you were, just better at hiding it. Finding you gave me purpose, gave me a reason to build something lasting instead of just drifting through life. You made me want to be better, do better, create something meaningful." "Our story is just beginning," Delilah quoted softly. "That is what you said that first day. Do you remember?" "Of course I remember," Cole said. "Best decision I ever made, convincing you to give life another chance, to write our story together." "And what a story it has been," Delilah said, leaning into his embrace. "What a beautiful, messy, complicated, wonderful story." The years continued to flow, as they always do. Sam married in 1902, bringing home a lovely young woman named Hannah who fit into the family as though she had always been there. They gave Cole and Delilah their first grandchild in 1903, a boy named after his grandfather. Catherine returned from school in Santa Fe with a degree in business and a sharp mind for finance, taking over the ranch's books and negotiating contracts that increased profits significantly. She remained unmarried, claiming she was too busy for romance, though Delilah suspected her daughter had simply not yet met anyone who could match her formidable intelligence and spirit. Daniel became the territory's most sought-after horse trainer, his reputation spreading far beyond New Mexico. He built his own operation on a corner of the ranch, breeding horses that combined beauty, intelligence, and stamina in ways that made them highly prized. He married in 1904, a quiet young woman who shared his love of animals and preferred the company of horses to people. Elizabeth shocked everyone by announcing at 16 that she wanted to become a teacher. Cole and Delilah supported her decision, sending her to the newly established normal school in Las Vegas, New Mexico. She graduated in 1907 and returned to Abiquiu to teach at the school that had been built during her childhood. "James," growing into a serious young man, seemed destined for a life in law or government, showing a talent for debate and policy that neither of his parents entirely understood but supported nonetheless. The ranch continued to prosper under the combined leadership of Cole, Sam, and Catherine. By 1905, Turner Ranch was one of the most successful operations in the territory, employing dozens of hands and shipping livestock all over the Southwest. They had expanded far beyond the original property, purchasing adjacent land and building additional structures to accommodate the growing operation. Through it all, Cole and Delilah remained the heart of the family. Their love, tested by time and circumstance, had only grown stronger over the years. They still took their evening walks together, still sat on the porch watching sunsets, still looked at each other with the wonder of two people who could not quite believe their good fortune. Santiago and Rosa grew old alongside them, their friendship deepening into something like family. The two families celebrated holidays together, supported each other through losses, and celebrated triumphs. When Rosa passed away peacefully in 1908, Delilah mourned her like a sister, and Cole helped Santiago through the grief with the patience of a son. In 1910, Cole and Delilah celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary with a party that brought together what seemed like half the territory. Sam and Hannah had given them 4 grandchildren by then, with another on the way. Daniel and his wife had 2 children who showed their father's talent with animals. Catherine remained unmarried but happy, running the business side of the ranch with ruthless efficiency. Elizabeth was engaged to a fellow teacher, planning a summer wedding. James, 16, was preparing to go to school in Albuquerque to study law. Standing in the middle of the celebration, surrounded by children and grandchildren, friends and neighbors, Delilah felt the weight of all those years wash over her. 25 years since she had stood in this same house, lost and alone, contemplating whether life was worth living. 25 years since Cole Turner had offered her a job and, unknowingly, a future. 25 years, Cole said, appearing at her elbow as though he could read her thoughts. Hard to believe sometimes. Best 25 years of my life, Delilah said. Even with all the hard times, the struggles, the worries, I would not trade a single day of it. Not even that time Sam broke his arm falling out of the hay loft, or when Catherine convinced Daniel to dye Elizabeth's hair with beet juice, or when James decided to try to train the rooster to crow on command and nearly got pecked to death. Delilah laughed, remembering each incident with the strange fondness that parents have for even their children's most exasperating moments. Not even then. Those moments are part of our story, part of what makes it ours. Our story, Cole repeated, pulling her close. I like the sound of that, always have. They danced together later that night, moving slowly to music provided by a quartet Santiago had hired as a surprise gift. Delilah rested her head on Cole's chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong, and thought about how far they had come from that day at the canyon. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" Cole asked, the same question he had asked so many times over the years. "For seeing me when I could not see myself, for believing our story was just beginning when I was certain it was over, for loving me enough to help me write a better ending." "The ending has not come yet," Cole reminded her. "We still have pages to fill, you and I." "Then let's make them good ones," Delilah said. The years that followed brought the expected mixture of joy and sorrow. Santiago passed away in 1912, joining his beloved Rosa, and Cole delivered a eulogy that had half the attendees in tears. More grandchildren arrived, until Cole and Delilah lost count of exactly how many they had, and just enjoyed each one as a unique individual. Catherine finally married in 1913, surprising everyone by choosing a quiet rancher from Colorado who had come to buy horses and stayed for the businesswoman who sold them to him. Elizabeth had 3 children in quick succession, filling her house with the chaos she had always thrived in. James graduated from school and returned to practice law in Santa Fe, though he came home often, drawn by the pull of family and land. Cole turned 60 in 1917, and though he was still strong and healthy, Delilah noticed him slowing down slightly. He let Sam handle more of the daily operations, content to focus on the aspects of ranching he loved most: working with horses, mentoring young hands, and spending time with his growing brood of grandchildren. He taught them to ride, to understand animals, to respect the land that had given them so much. Delilah at 57 was still sharp as ever, her mind clear and her energy seemingly boundless. She managed the household with the same efficiency she always had, coordinated family gatherings, and served as matriarch to a clan that now numbered in the dozens when everyone was counted. They talked sometimes about the future, about what would happen to the ranch when they were gone. Sam was more than capable of running things, with Catherine handling finances and Daniel managing the horse operation. But Cole wanted to make sure everything was clearly spelled out, no room for conflict or confusion. He spent months working with James to draft documents that divided the property fairly, ensured everyone had a role and a stake, and protected the family legacy they had built. "You are not dying anytime soon," Delilah said one evening when she found him poring over papers yet again. "You are going to live to be 100 and drive me crazy the whole time." Cole looked up and smiled. "From your lips to God's ears. But Delilah, we need to be realistic. We are not young anymore. I want to make sure everything is taken care of, that you are taken care of, that this empire we built does not crumble because I failed to plan properly." "I know," Delilah said, sitting beside him, "and I appreciate your diligence. But do not forget to live while you are planning for the future, all right? We have earned the right to enjoy these years." He took her hand and brought it to his lips. "You are right, as always. I will stop obsessing over paperwork and focus on what matters: you, our family, and this life we built together." True to his word, Cole put away the legal documents and focused on living. They took trips, visiting Sam's family at their house on the north end of the ranch, spending weeks at a time with Catherine and her husband, traveling to Santa Fe to see James argue cases in court. They watched grandchildren grow and great-grandchildren arrive. They attended weddings and christenings, and all the rituals that mark a family's passage through time. In 1920, New Mexico achieved statehood, officially joining the Union after years as a territory. Cole and Delilah traveled to Santa Fe for the celebration, watching with pride as the land they had built their lives on became a full part of the nation. It felt symbolic somehow, a marker of how far everything had come. "We are living history," Cole observed as they watched the festivities. "Everything we have seen, everything we have been part of, from territory to statehood, from dirt-poor ranchers to this." He gestured at their successful children and grandchildren gathered around them. "Not bad for a woman who thought her story was over and a man running from his past," Delilah agreed. "We did all right, didn't we?" "We did better than all right," Cole said. "We did spectacularly." The 1920s brought modernization to the ranch and the region. Automobiles became common, telephones connected previously isolated families, and electricity began reaching even rural areas. Cole approached these changes with a mixture of enthusiasm and skepticism, willing to adapt but not ready to abandon everything that had worked for decades. Sam pushed for more modern equipment, for trucks instead of horses for some tasks, for better communication systems. Cole listened to his son's arguments and, more often than not, agreed. He was not so set in his ways that he could not see the benefit of progress, and he trusted Sam's judgment. Delilah watched these changes with interest, marveling at how different the world had become from the one she had known as a young woman. Indoor plumbing, electric lights, the ability to call her children instead of having to ride for hours to see them, all of it seemed like miracles. She embraced the conveniences while appreciating the continuity of the important things: family, love, the land itself. In 1925, Cole and Delilah celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary. The party was even larger than the 25th had been, with family coming from all over the Southwest to celebrate. There were grandchildren everywhere, ranging from infants to young adults starting families of their own. Great-grandchildren toddled around underfoot, a new generation carrying the story forward. Sam gave a speech during the celebration, talking about his parents' love and partnership, about how they had built something lasting not just in land and livestock, but in family and legacy. "My father once told me that he and my mother wrote their story together," Sam said. "Looking around at all of us, at everything they created, I think it is safe to say it is a pretty damn good story." Cole stood and pulled Delilah to her feet. "Our story is just beginning," I told her once, he said. "And you know what? I still believe that. Every day with this woman is a new chapter, a new adventure. 40 years down, and I am looking forward to 40 more." The crowd laughed at the audacity of the wish, but Delilah saw the love in Cole's eyes and knew he meant it. He still looked at her the way he had when she was 24 and he was 27, like she was the answer to questions he had not known how to ask. They did not get 40 more years, of course. Life is not that generous. But they got something almost as precious: time. Time to watch their family continue to grow and thrive. Time to see the ranch weather the depression that began in 1929, surviving because of careful management and the strong foundation they had built. Time to sit together on the porch and remember all the days that had brought them to this moment. Cole passed away in his sleep in 1933, 76 years old and surrounded by family. Delilah was holding his hand when he slipped away, his final words a whispered "I love you" that she would carry with her for the rest of her days. She grieved deeply, feeling like half of herself had been torn away, but she did not break. Cole had taught her too well the value of resilience, the importance of pushing forward even when it hurt. She lived another 12 years, surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who all loved her fiercely. She remained sharp until the end, still managing household affairs and offering advice to anyone who asked. She told stories about the early days, about building the ranch from almost nothing, about Cole's courage and kindness, about the life they had created together through sheer determination and love. Delilah passed away in 1945, 79 years old and ready to rejoin the man she had loved for more than 60 years. Her children and grandchildren gathered around her bed, and in her final moments she smiled. "I am going to see Cole," she whispered. "I am going to tell him what a beautiful story we wrote together." They buried her next to Cole on a hill overlooking the ranch, under the vast New Mexico sky they had both loved. The headstones were simple, bearing names and dates and a single line that Sam had chosen. "Our story was just beginning." They wrote it together. The Turner Ranch continued for generations after, run by descendants who carried forward the legacy of hard work, integrity, and family that Cole and Delilah had established. The original house was preserved, eventually becoming a family museum of sorts, filled with photos and artifacts from those early days. Children and grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren would walk through it, seeing the bedroom where Delilah had recovered from her despair, the kitchen where she had cooked that first meal, the porch where two people had fallen in love while watching sunsets. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the light hit just right, people swore they could see two figures sitting on that porch, holding hands and watching the sky paint itself in shades of orange and purple. Just the ghosts of a woman who had thought her story was over, and the man who had convinced her it was only just beginning, still writing their tale together into eternity. The story of Cole and Delilah Turner became legend in the family, passed down through generations as an example of what love, hard work, and determination could build. Young couples facing their own struggles would hear about the woman at the canyon's edge and the cowboy who pulled her back, about how they had created something beautiful from the ruins of what had come before. Because that was the truth at the heart of their story. Endings can be beginnings. Despair can transform into hope, and sometimes, when you are certain your story is over, you just need someone to say, "Our story is just beginning. Let's write it together." And then, you need to be brave enough to pick up the pen and start writing. Cole and Delilah had been brave enough. They had written a story worth telling, worth remembering, worth passing on. A story of second chances and hard-won happiness, of building a life and a legacy from nothing but determination and love. A story that proved that sometimes the best chapters come after you think the book is closed, and that with the right partner, you can write an ending, or a beginning, that is better than anything you could have imagined alone. Their story was just beginning. Cole had said all those years ago at the canyon's edge, and he had been right. It had been just the beginning of something extraordinary, something that would echo through generations and inspire countless others to choose hope over despair, to believe in the possibility of second chances, to write their own stories with courage and love. And in the end, that was the greatest legacy of all. Not the land or the livestock or the material success, but the proof that even in the hardest moments when everything seems lost, there is always the possibility of a new beginning. All you have to do is be brave enough to take the hand that is offered and say yes to writing a new story together. Cole Turner and Delilah Emerson Turner did exactly that. And what a beautiful story it turned out to be.